morning, everyone. Morning, Rosie. Right, when I was first asked to preach, I was given a set of dates, and I chose this one specifically. It's the first Sabbath of the new year. And I did years ago do a sermon on the first Sabbath of the new year on New Year's resolutions. So I dug that one out. So I'm just going to ask you, who's made some New Year's resolutions? I know you have.
Yeah.
No? Right, can I ask why not?
I've never made a New Year's resolution. I try to be resolute every day of the year.
Has anyone ever made resolutions in the past? Yes? Exactly. Exactly. So you'll be pleased to know I probably in the past have made some resolutions, but for the last 20 or so years I have decided there's no point making New Year's resolutions because they're usually things that are hard to keep and I don't keep them. And then what happens is you start to feel guilty because you have not kept the resolution. So it's just bad news all round having New Year's resolutions. Did you know only about 20% of people keep their resolutions beyond January? And yes, and there's only a small percentage of those who are successful all year. But I do know you've decided on some sort of resolution. I'm reminded of Paul. He says, you know how he says, whatever I choose to do, I can't do, and whatever I don't want to do, I seem to do. That's our human condition, isn't it? If we're aware of it, then that's a good thing. So that was the converted Paul. He struggled to do things that he resolved to do, as we all do. So I'm going to, at the end of this sermon, come up with some resolutions that I think are easier to keep, and that's what I'll be sharing with you. Another thing we tend to do at the beginning of a new year, especially in schools, is they get, usually on pupil-free days, they get a motivational speaker in, or early in the year they bring in motivational speakers to speak to the year 12s. Who's been at work when they had some sort of a, let's get us enthused about work, let's bring in a motivational speaker. You would know the type of thing. The sort of person is usually a successful Olympic athlete. I've been to those. Somebody who's been very successful in business, sports, whatever. The definition, so the idea is that we're pushing for people to try to be successful. Now, I've found a definition of success in the Macquarie Dictionary. We must, success is the favourable or prosperous termination of events or endeavours, or success is described as the gaining of wealth, position, or the like. Anyone here successful? Don't you think you're successful? Right, we're going to talk about success. There's different types of success. There's success because of appearance. So some people who are naturally born beautiful might end up becoming models and film stars, and they become so successful they become like world known just because of their looks. Right? We know people who probably everybody in the world knows their name simply because they're good looking. We must think it's good to be successful in this way because humans spend so much time and money trying to be like them and and that's why we have such resolutions as trying to lose weight, etc. Some people achieve worldly success and popularity because of their talent. So singers, sports stars. Find anyone of that category in here? Definitely not anyone in the Gwyn family if we're talking about sports talent. Okay. Great physical prowess. Some people are held up as examples to motivate us to set goals and work hard, because to become the best in your field when it comes to being physically talented, you have to work and work and work and work. In fact, you need to devote your whole life to training. Some people see success in terms of riches and wealth. We know people who've gained great wealth, and we would say maybe they've come up with a great business idea, or they're clever with money, and we say they're successful. Sarah has a cousin the same age as her, born in a similar situation, Sherry, and he's a multi-millionaire. So girls, has it happened to you yet? No? Okay. Success could also be seen in terms of a rank or position you've achieved, like go up the ladder, the corporate ladder at work, or become the boss. That might be considered being successful. And then there's kingship as an idea of success. Do we admire royalty? I'm sure there's lots and lots of people, royals over the world that the entire world knows, whose faces sell the most magazines. Royals. These people are just people that, because of the title or the family they were born into, they are considered special. And like the United States, that doesn't even have a royal family, goes absolutely berserk over British royalty. And we're so very proud of our Queen Mary. She's becoming Queen, an Australian girl. We would say, wow, what a successful life she's had. So, back to making real New Year's resolutions. I'm part of the 8% of the population that can never do it. And as I said, I feel guilty, so I'm not going to add guilt to failure, so I've just given up doing it. It's a bad combination. According to the definition of success that I have just explained, I'm pretty much a failure anyway. I've never had any illusions that I was going to make my fortune because of my appearance. I have a few talents, but not sufficient to bring me fame or fortune. Or maybe I just never got the break. I've never aspired to be a great athlete. I was the last person picked on the sports team, right?
You should tell the story about your swimming carnival.
Yes. I will not bring up the swimming carnival story here. I have not attained great wealth. My parents weren't rich. I didn't have any novel ideas for making money. Every time somebody invents something amazing that everybody wants, I think, gee, I could afford that. Why didn't I think of that first? And I'm not going to accumulate wealth anyway because I've got 3 cats. Nobody else here has cats. Nobody gets that joke.
They're so expensive.
Cats are an expensive pet to have. And I haven't gone up the corporate ladder at all or become the top in my field. In fact, I'm pretty ordinary. I wasn't born into a royal family, and I didn't get the chance to marry into one, so I've missed out pretty much everywhere. So it's always worried me when I've been in a group of, say, students, and I've heard these pep talks, and I've heard people trying to get kids to set goals as if goal setting is what's going to make you successful. Because most people don't achieve those goals, do they? Most people don't achieve them. What if life doesn't turn out as you expect? There could be any number of reasons why you don't achieve your goals. Bad things do happen. Illness, accidents or misfortunes can prevent you from reaching your goals. Are you then a failure? future. So you know the story in the Bible of the self-satisfied man who amassed a great fortune and then he died that night. That's life. That's how life happens. So if you aren't successful, does it follow that you're a failure? So can you see why I think there's something just that little bit dangerous in the type of thinking that says, yes, you should be setting goals for your success. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a bio about 3 men, and I would like no children here, 1 little child. Anyway, I'll just talk about each man, and we're talking about were these men successes or failures, and you tell me at the end of each who the man is. So the first man I'm going to talk about was a man born to a father of rank, a man who had been Prime Minister of his own country. The son showed, you're guessing there? The son showed no particular brilliance at school, played no sports, and he avoided company. He got a break in that he was able to go to England and to be educated in legal studies. He became a lawyer. Success, a lawyer. Lawyers are considered to be very successful types, aren't they? This man in later life gave up law and went into politics. He got mixed up in some unpopular causes and he ended up spending several stints in prison. Anyone got any idea yet? Maybe you're all a different generation from me. He spent his later life dressed in very poor clothes that he made himself from his own spinning wheel. He lived simply and he travelled on foot or rarely, on rare occasions, on a bike. This was in the age of cars, by the way. His life ended when he was murdered. This man sounds a bit like a failure. Who was he? You don't know. If I say his name, I guarantee you'll all know who he is. Gandhi. Right? You've heard of Gandhi? Right, so you know who he is. Was he a success? Was he a failure? The second man is much like the first. He was also the son of a very important man. It was his right to be trained to follow in his father's footsteps, to be educated at an elite school, and also to become a very powerful leader in the community. Instead, he chose to be a loner, a hermit living in the wilderness and caves. He shrank from contact with others, rejecting society, fearing that he might become contaminated. He dressed in very old-fashioned simple clothes and ate very plain food, the sort of food that was just lying around. At times he would come out of seclusion and mingle with society. Has anyone got any idea what I'm talking about yet? Right, it'll come clear in a minute. At one time he did become a successful speaker, and after a time he developed a following. So this is a nice rag to riches story, isn't it? He's chosen to live in a poor, simple life, and he comes out of seclusion and he becomes more important. Maybe this is when he reached the pinnacle of his profession. No, because there was one who came after him who was greater than he, and he ended up fading into obscurity after a short time. Yeah. He wasn't ambitious and he wasn't unhappy that somebody took over from him. So it obviously wasn't a goal setter or very perseverant. That's how he would be labelled in today's terms. In fact, he became unpopular and ended up on the wrong side of the authorities and in prison, and he was finally executed. Towards his life, he was depressed and assailed by doubts, wondering if he was suffering a delusion. So was he a success or a failure? The third man, he didn't even have the advantages of birth that the first two had. He was born illegitimate. His stepfather was just a tradesman, and he became just a tradesman. Later, he chucked in his job and became an itinerant. A like one from whom men hide their faces. He was despised and we esteemed him not. So if you're ever feeling really, really down about how you're being treated, stop and think. This is a description of how Jesus was treated. Did he have great physical powers? I would have thought that God's Son, the creator of mankind, would have made a great athlete. If he was alive today, I wonder if he would have been a winner at the Olympics. But Isaiah 53:4 says, surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. So it doesn't sound to me like he was in optimum physical form. Did he acquire great wealth during his lifetime? Matthew 8:20 says, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Oh my goodness, a man who doesn't even own his own house, doesn't have property. So is that one of the things people ask these days? Do you own your own home? What do you own? That seems to be a ranking of success, whatever you might own. He didn't have rank. Did he rise to the heights in his own sphere? Matthew 13:55. This is something that was said of Jesus. Isn't this the carpenter's son? And probably said in that way. Isn't his mother's name Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Simon and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? This poor fellow wasn't even popular in his own hometown. Was he successful because he was a king? Well, Jesus was the king of the universe. You'd think he would be successful because he was the king. John 13:5 says, after that he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around them. I don't know what you think about royalty, but that doesn't sound to me like the action of a king. In fact, at the time when Jesus did this, that particular action that he did was the action of one of the lowest people in that society. The lowest, a particular type of servant, in fact a slave. You wouldn't get anybody lower on the rank of success than a slave. Were these men successful? We'll go back to our definition of success. The first part says the favourable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavours. Was Gandhi successful in that case? He actually was. Read his story, read what that man achieved through the most unusual methods, very different from people of his time, and see how much he achieved in his life. Now, go back to that definition, the favourable or prosperous termination of attempts or endeavours. Was John the Baptist successful using that definition? It was prophesied that a man would come to prepare the way for Jesus. Was he successful? He was very successful. He did what he was asked to do. Which brings me to what this is all about. There seems to be a paradox here. Christianity does not make sense in terms of the understanding of the world. In fact, Christianity is foolishness. A paradox means a statement or proposition seemingly self-contradictory or absurd and yet explicable as expressing the truth. So we're just going to look at the paradoxes of Christianity, okay? So I'd like you to open up at Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 to 10. And here we've got some examples of some Christian paradoxes. Do you know what's in those texts? That's right, it's the Beatitudes. Can you pick a Beatitude that seems to be a paradox? an absolute perfect paradox, that one. Another one? They will inherit the earth. Yeah. So at this earth, it's not the meek inheriting the earth, is it? It's the meek who are downtrodden. It's the strong and the ruthless who are inheriting this earth. Another one? Is there another one in there that looks like a paradox to you? Got one there, Sheree?
Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Right. So there's plenty of people on this earth today who are being persecuted. Many groups in this world are suffering persecution, but it says here the paradox is that the persecuted will be inheriting the kingdom of heaven. Okay. Here's another paradox. It's in John 12:25. It says, the man who loves his life will lose it, and the man who hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. And that text is found in all four Gospels. So if you love this world, you're going to lose your life. In Luke 22:26 to 27, here's another paradox. It says, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? It is not the one who is at the table, but I am among you as the one who serves. Luke 14:11. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And another one, Mark chapter 10, verses 42 to 44. It says, you know that those who are regarded as leaders of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. So you've picked up my theme? The Christian paradox is Christ himself. Christ, we were talking in our Sabbath school lesson, is the Son of God. He's God himself. He's the creator, the maker of the universe, of absolutely everything. And we have no idea how complex this universe is. Like, a human being is an incredibly complex organism. He's that. He's the greatest one who's ever come to earth and lived and died on it, and yet he chose to not be successful in the eyes of the world. He chose to live a life of humility, to be as a servant. I don't think there's any other religion that has the head of our religion as a servant, as a humble, unsuccessful servant. 2 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 9 says, for you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, so that you through his poverty might become rich. There's another paradox. Through Christ's choosing to be a servant, that's our opportunity to become rich. So now we are actually finding out how we really may become rich and successful. So have you worked out how we become rich and successful? Through service. Because that's what Jesus did. He came to serve. He says, I came to serve. Jesus admonishes us to do the same. 1 Corinthians 10:24 says, nobody should seek his own good, but the good of others. And John 13 verses 14 to 17, when Jesus was washing the feet, the lowliest job of all the jobs in his country, he said, now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done I'll use the word rich, life as a Christian. So, service ennobles life. As we've already heard, to be first, we must become slaves. Service exemplifies neighbourliness. In the story Jesus told about the Good Samaritan, Jesus said the true neighbour was the one who offered assistance to his fellow man. Jesus finished the story saying, "Go and do likewise." Thank you. It's KJ.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for getting up and sharing about ADRA and what's happening in Cairns. We were serving. That's improving neighbourliness, isn't it? Like I bet you made friends amongst the Salvation Army people and in that Indigenous community, which wouldn't have normally happened unless you were doing service. That's how we make friends. That's how we make neighbours. Doing service helps us to become Christ-like. It demonstrates love. When Jesus, after his resurrection, asked Peter if he loved him, and Peter said yes, what did Jesus tell him to do? Feed my lambs and feed my sheep. Care for others. If you love me, show me your love. That's how to prove it. And service lightens life's burdens. Those poor people, who've lost everything, and as you know, Cherie, your mum, the number of times her house went under, to have people come in and just be there and help would have lightened that burden. Imagine bearing that on your own. So Galatians 6, chapter 6, verse 2 says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." So we'll go back to our New Year's resolutions, and with God's help, we can decide on some that hopefully we will have some success with. Okay? So, instead of resolving to lose weight or climb the corporate ladder, let's resolve to be of service. Resolve to do something. Now, the things happening in this world today, and like North Queen, it doesn't matter where you look, it's either bushfires or floods or storms or drought, it's something. And in overseas countries, there's war, earthquakes, like absolute disasters everywhere, and will be very easy for people to become discouraged and say, what on earth can I do? How can I change it? This is how you do it. You resolve to do something. No matter how small, whatever you resolve to do, it will be of value. Albert Schweitzer said, "You must give time to your fellow man, even if it's a little thing. Do something for others, something for which you get no pay but the privilege of doing it." At times we may be overwhelmed by the absolute magnitude of pain and suffering in the world and think we can make no difference, but you can make a difference to someone or to some situation. Little things can make a big difference. Remember when that horrible earthquake happened in Turkey? Just the finding of one little infant alive after days was enough to make a nation joyful. Just one bit of good news, one bright thing will warm hearts. God has performed some miracles for me in the past, and they were little miracles, I talk about them, they're not huge miracles, but those little things have warmed my heart and have kept me believing in a God who cares for even the littlest things in my life. Just little things can make the big difference. Now here's something we can do really easily. We can do it every day, and I guarantee it'll make a difference to everybody around you. Smile. Can I challenge you that no matter what's happening in your of the motivational speakers that I went to listen to that I did get something out of. He was a very successful chain of motel owner. He started as a bellboy when he was about 14, and he's now owns motels all across the world, and they're known for their excellence. And he said, I listened to him speak, and he said, every person you speak to, every person in your organisation, make them feel like they are worthy. Make them feel like they are essential, as they are. Whether they clean the toilets, they sit at the reception desk, or whatever they do, they are essential. And the other thing he said, which I've never forgotten and I resolved to do from that day on, is lighten people's loads so the people who are around you don't bring them down with whatever might have to be bringing you down. So I went through a bleak period in my life, it lasted for years, and I'd go to work and I'd look bleak and I'd act bleak. And after I heard him, I chose to not shed that bleakness and share that bleakness, and I chose to smile, to laugh, to encourage, and guess what? I got happy. I found lots more things to be happy about than before. Smile. There's a game I've taught Sabbath school kids called Bouncing Smiles, right? This is how you play it. You go to work, you go down the street, you walk outside here, and you smile. And then you count how many smiles you get back. You smile at complete strangers. Isn't it lovely to get a smile back? Don't avoid their eyes, look at them, smile. Almost certainly you'll get a smile back. And you feel better. They feel better. Easy to do. Play bouncing smiles, count up how many you get back. Right? See how you go. The other thing you can do is, if you have more time to interact with somebody, give a kindly word. I remember going into a school one day and they had a sign up, and you've probably heard it, but this is the first time I'd ever seen it, and the sign said, "Be kinder than necessary. Everybody is facing some kind of battle." So have you heard that before? I was really struck by it. So the person who really irritates you at work because they're obviously in a foul mood and they're taking it out on you, guess what? You need to be kinder than necessary to that person, because who knows why they're in the mood that they're in. It might be something really good, really difficult. Great advice. Just carry it with you every day. Be kind. Another motivational speaker I heard some years ago, and he talked to us for an entire day. And at the end, he said, "I want you to remember 3 things if you remember nothing else from what I told you today. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind." Think about your words, think about your behaviour, think about how you speak to people. Be kind, be kind, be kind. And I'm going to say give hugs. Now, some people don't give hugs, right? I understand that. There are some people who are not huggers. I actually thank God for huggers, because huggers have helped me many times. If you're not a hug giver, then resolve to receive a hug graciously. I'm not saying you have to hug, but if somebody hugs you, don't go like this, please. That's very discouraging for the hugger. Something else you can do, laugh. Laughter is very healthy. I read a quote that said, "With the fearful strain that is on me night and day, if I did not laugh, I should die." Now, people have told me I've got the sort of laugh you can hear from one side of the shopping centre to the other. And I think that's true, because somebody did say they lost me at the shopping centre and they found me because I was laughing. But I like to laugh, and you need, if you're not in the mood for laughing, do something that makes you laugh. And be the sort of person that makes other people laugh. Resolve to be a person who lifts and doesn't drag, who lifts people's spirits, who makes that day go a little bit happier. Resolve to be that person. Lighten up, see the funny side of things, don't take yourself too seriously. How often does unpleasantness arise in our church? We have chosen to take something personally that was probably never meant to be offensive. And all I can say is, get over it, right? Don't carry a grudge.
That was very Rosie like.
Yeah. Cry. We talked about that this morning. I really enjoyed the Sunday school lesson. Thank you for your contributions, everybody. I cried several times this morning. I cry easily, actually. I laugh easily. I cry easily. But cry. There's no need to say anything more. Some of the people in my life who have helped me the most when I needed emotional support are those who cried with me. It's okay to cry and be sad, but don't do it alone. You need to do it with a trusted friend. Give gifts. I am not a gift giver. Have you heard about the love languages? Yes. Well, the two bottom ones for me are words of affirmation. So you can say whatever you like to me, it doesn't matter, it's not going to affect me one way or another. You can be as rude as you like to me, still won't affect me one way or another. I'm impervious to words. And gifts. So every Christmas I go to numerous dinners and morning teas and parties, and everybody's handing out gifts. And I've got a pile of gifts in front of me, and I think, oh, I forgot again. It's shocking. I'm a terrible gift giver. I have to learn. I really have to learn. But a gift could be something as simple as a text that you send to somebody. If somebody comes into your mind, if God impresses you to contact somebody, send that text. Don't say, oh, I'll leave it till later on. Just do it. Send that encouraging text. Give somebody a flower. Sorry, I had a whole bunch of roses and I left them behind because I'm just such a bad gift giver. And there's, oh sorry, a chocolate. Now, I don't want people to give me chocolates because actually I have made one little New Year's resolution, and that is to try and avoid sugar. But if somebody gives me a chocolate, that's it, that's the exact resolution.
We once gave her chocolate monopolies at Christmas or at Jack and she ate all the pieces.
It was the best government monopoly I've ever had. Hey, I hate monopoly. So I ate the chocolate pieces as fast as I could. The game was over. Great, no win-win, no problem. Now, because my gift is quality time, I will say that the best gift is to share your time with someone. If you want to give me a gift, spend time with me, sit beside me. And there are plenty of people in the world like that. So the gift of time, I have decided after a very long career of working that I'm pulling back, and I'm only going to work a couple of days a week until I get sick of that. And the reason is I want to give more time to my friends. I want to give more time to my family because I've been giving time to my students, but I feel it's time for me to give time to those other people around me. Give time. Do something nice. You know the saying, practice random acts of kindness. And have you heard that one? So just do something kind for a stranger, you know. Pick something up off the floor that they've dropped. Anything to show kindness. There's another little bit at the end of that that says, and senseless acts of beauty. I'm not quite sure what that means actually. Can you explain ideas of what senseless acts of beauty are? Well, think about it, hey, because it's probably not hard to do. God will send one of those angels to do some extraordinarily kind thing or nice thing to me, which completely restores my faith in humanity. So you can be that person who does that for somebody else. You can be that angel. Be hospitable. Jesus tells us to be hospitable. He says, give a glass of water to your enemy. If you've got the gift of hospitality, that's probably an easy thing to do. For me, I don't seem to quite have that, but I'm going to work on it. I'm going to start. That's why I'm asking for taking more time in my life to be more hospitable. Now, here's one that costs nothing, and it's easy to do if you get in the habit, and that is use good manners. I tell that to my students. The difference between a student who uses good manners towards you and a student who doesn't, it just makes such a difference to your day when somebody says thank you, miss, or and somebody doesn't. And I've always said to the students, if you show respect and use good manners towards your teachers, guess what? You'll find that they will be more sympathetic to you if you haven't done your homework or if you need help with something. It's like the oil that keeps relationships healthy and working. Good manners is the way you show respect for others. So basically what I'm saying is show respect for others. Ralph Waldo Emerson says that manners are the happy way of doing things. That's pretty clever, isn't it? Using manners is the happy way. Someone else has said manners are like the zero in arithmetic. They may not actually be much in themselves, but they are capable of adding great value to the value of everything else. So, I was just saying I'm a teacher. The students who stand out in my estimation are not the smart ones, or the super talented ones, or the good-looking ones, but those who have good manners. Those people really stand out. Manners are so simple. Little things such as saying excuse me and thank you, waiting for others to go before you, coming to a program on time, not interrupting or talking while someone else is talking. These things are like jewels. They show you respect others. And you would not believe how much brightness they add to other lives. And they add value to your own. This is the one I want you to really practice this year. Be an encourager. Resolve to be positive and joyful and spread joy. This is a sad world. It doesn't matter who you talk to, there are really, really grim and sad things happening in people's lives. Try to be an encourager, to spread a little bit of joy, to lighten the sadness in those lives. I really like Paul in the New Testament. A lot of people say Paul was a woman hater, he was this, he was that. You read Paul's life. Paul was an encourager. Read his letters. Read the things he has said at the ends of his letters. He was a man who went around the churches and he encouraged the believers. There are many examples in the book of Acts, and then we can read all those beautiful words in his letters. You just read some of the things. Tell so-and-so this and tell so-and-so that. And they were all words of encouragement. Resolve that your words will build up somebody's day or somebody's life and not knock it down. Listen to what Paul says in Ephesians. He says, watch the way you talk. Say only what is good and helpful to those you are talking to and what will give them a blessing. And that's a bit hard to do when you're within a church. Sometimes we like family and we tend to speak like we do in families, we're pretty honest. But if it's, as I say, if you're not going to say something that's going to build, then and be a blessing, then be careful what we say. I'll talk about criticism. There is a place for admonishment. It's biblical. if you're going to speak to somebody about something, keep that in mind, that at the end of it, that person has to feel like that person cares about them and has wanted to help them. That's the only purpose for criticism. So please, before you criticise the speaker or the style of worship or complain about how long it took, ask yourself, is what I'm saying edifying, and secondly, have I helped? Resolve to be successful God's way as a servant. Resolve to be humble. Don't confuse fame with success. Madonna is one, Helen Keller is the other. You know who Helen Keller is? Success is in the world's terms. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but too often it causes people to compromise on what is our God-given duty, which is to serve others and do so while serving God. Can you think of anybody who sacrificed worldly fame, either in entertainment or in sports, simply because it became an impediment in their endeavours to serve God? I would like just everybody now, as we finish, to open at Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. And would somebody like to read it? Got that, Sheree? Can you read it, please? Nobody else has put their hand up.
Do nothing from selfishness or envy conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourselves. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others.
So you can put that text up on your fridge and remember it. So this new year, we don't have to worry about aiming high and failing. You're not a failure if you don't achieve worldly success. You can aim low. Or should I say, aim to be lowly, like Jesus. Philippians chapter 2, verse 5 to 7 says, your attitude should be the same as that of Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant. I will conclude with the words of Martin Luther King, who said, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. We can do this with God's help. So I believe that the highest calling we can have in a world which really needs help is to lighten the load that we as humans have to bear in this sin-sick world. Our highest calling is to uplift and to harden others. That's what Jesus did for us. It's the least we can do for him. We have a hymn now? 183.